Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Cityworks and ArcGIS, Empowering Public Asset Management. I'm Vernon Walters, and I'll be your host today. The webinar will last approximately 45 minutes, followed by a 15-minute Q&A session. If you have any questions or concerns during the presentation, feel free to submit them in the Q&A window located in the bottom right corner of your screen. Now, I'm pleased to hand it over to our Vice President of Vision and Product Engineering, Becky Tomaszewski, to begin the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Vernon, and thank you everyone for joining in today. I'd like to take a few minutes, or just a few seconds actually, and just cover, for those of you who aren't familiar with Cityworks, a little bit about our application. So Cityworks is a GIS-centric public asset management solution. We're built directly on the GIS solution from Esri, and we support more than 700 local government and public service organizations throughout the U.S. and around the world. And those vary from single user sites to enterprise installations covering cities, counties, and townships across the U.S. and again around the world. So we're built exclusively on Esri's ArcGIS application, and we'll get into this a little bit more as we start to dive into the application today and the overall solution, which incorporates Esri's tools as well. So I'll be covering today Cityworks and how we leverage the ArcGIS platform from Esri, different methods that are provided through a variety of tools to extend the solution to have tools for engagement and analytics, the Cityworks and ArcGIS tools for the operations side, and then we'll dive into the Q&A. And so first off, I want to start just looking at why is it necessary to have these types of solutions for public asset management and to get to the point of analyzing and querying your data. And it really boils down to the fact that across the US and around the world, state and local government are dealing with very similar situations and challenges. And those range from aging infrastructure, regulations that are being placed upon organizations, the requirements to do more with less resources, whether that means a higher level of service, less staff, or less funding available to accomplish what's being requested. And many organizations are dealing with multiple of these challenges. It's not just a single challenge being placed upon them. And so that's where Cityworks and ArcGIS can come in together to provide a comprehensive solution to help you manage these challenges and be successful. And so again, for those of you who aren't familiar with Cityworks, I just want to take a few minutes here to just look at what Cityworks actually provides. And this is our out-of-the-box functionality. And so it includes the tools for service request, and this can come through a variety of means into the system, and we'll get into that a little bit more during the demonstration. But this could be coming from a third-party system, such as our partners SeeClickFix and CitySource. Today I'll be showing the use of Esri Citizen Reporter as part of that process, or it could just be as simple as a resident calling in on the phone and somebody from the city going ahead and inputting that information into Cityworks. A next step in the process is an inspection, to go out to the field and take care of an investigation, determine the source of the issue that was reported, if there's necessary repairs that need to be done, and also the condition of the infrastructure. That's followed up with a work order where we can start to track some of our resources for equipment, labor, material, track tasks that might be part of an operational procedure or regulations, include attachments, and then also start to get into more detail in terms of some of the other components related to projects or contracts that might be necessary. But then all of this information gets accumulated and provided back in a means that can be analyzed and then taken to a reporting process. And that's where the real power of the system coming together, especially with the ArcGIS platform, helps our organizations. And so how does it achieve this? As I mentioned, Cityworks is the GIS-centric application built directly on ArcGIS Enterprise and ArcGIS Online. And so for us, the system of record is truly, for all of your infrastructure and assets, all that is ArcGIS. There's no replication or duplication of that data within Cityworks. And then parallel to that, Cityworks is a system of record for all of your work order and asset management information. So all those activities that I mentioned, all the data that's being tracked as part of those activities, all of that resides in Cityworks. But again, all of your asset information relies solely in ArcGIS. But then we leverage other applications as part of that solution to start to get into the system of engagement. That could be through a variety of native apps. It could be through citizen engagement tools. And those are all a means of capturing that information either from the field or from residents and then bringing it into Cityworks and ArcGIS. And then this information starts to get accumulated and built up, and that allows us to start to develop it as part of a system of insight. And for that, we're relying on some of our applications such as Operational Insights and then Esri's Insights for ArcGIS. So at its core, Cityworks has always supported ArcGIS. We're built, as I mentioned, directly on ArcGIS Enterprise, leveraging ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Runtime for our native apps, and then for more in-depth spatial analysis, ArcGIS Pro, and Collector for ArcGIS. But as the ArcGIS platform has expanded through a series of apps, that information from Cityworks that's leveraging those apps has also expanded to include those as part of the overall solution for our clients. And that includes being able to take information from Cityworks out to insights for ArcGIS. Leveraging Survey 123 for ArcGIS, Collector, and Workforce as part of the overall Cityworks application for the field. Using Citizen Reporter or Crowdsource Reporter as a means of entering the application and kicking off those processes, and then rolling it up to Operations Dashboard for ArcGIS and displaying that information in the hub as a means of communicating back to your residents. And as we're talking about all this data, I think it's important to stop and take a minute and just look at the various phases of collecting that data over the course of an organization's maturity. And so at some point, everybody that we've worked with is starting with paper. And it's natural, it's where everybody starts. And over time, that starts to migrate into spreadsheets, whether that be Excel spreadsheets or Access systems, trying to find means of sharing that data out across the organization. But that as well has its challenges. Over time, then, organizations start to develop their GIS and use that as a system of record to capture where those assets are located and their information. And then at the end of the spectrum, we have the goal for all those organizations, getting to a point of having true intelligence about the location of your data, your business processes, having that confidence in your data to know that the information that you're looking at is qualified to start using it to make meaningful decisions. And so where do you start in that process? How is that data collected? What's the means of entering into the system and kicking off the process? And how can that be done in a manner that's easily accessible for organizations, especially those who are just getting started? And that's what we'll be covering today. And so actually, instead of starting at this point of how to start capturing the data, I'm going to start at where you want to be at the end of the final goal and the end result of that process. And then we'll take a few steps back and look at how to get started. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move to the software demonstration. And so what we're looking at here is Cityworks Analytics and Insights for ArcGIS. Cityworks Analytics is a series of templates that we've created that provide out-of-the-box workbooks and cards, leveraging Insights for ArcGIS, that bring in that information from Cityworks, whether it be for service requests, work orders, inspections, permitting and case management, materials inventory management, and as well, we're starting to extend this information and expand it across verticals such as pavement, water, sewer, and airports. But this gives our organizations the ability to take that data from Cityworks that they've been capturing and managing for any number of years, and within 30 minutes, have it loaded within Insights for ArcGIS and be able to start performing analysis. And many of our clients take this information, and this is just a starting point. Once they have these templates available in Cityworks Analytics, they can take them and make them their own. Start modifying these queries that are being displayed here and adding additional templates based off the needs of their organization. For those of you who aren't familiar with Insights for ArcGIS, this is a tool from Esri that allows us to start to really query the location intelligence of our data, take that information from Cityworks and display it in a means that can be used for spatial analysis as well. So if I were to come into my organization now and I want to start querying information to understand our levels of preventative maintenance from the previous years and how that's changed over time, where that work is located, I can start to come in over here, and as I select information from one card, that filter is applied across all those cards and workbooks, and they're updated dynamically and on the fly. As well, the information that's being captured here and relayed back for that visual analysis is also being updated dynamically from Cityworks. And so as I mentioned, these tools are available. I can now see how over the years that information has been changing in terms of the preventative maintenance, where different hotspots have been taking place and developing over time for the location of that preventative maintenance, what supervisors, what type of work that's included, and again, those workload locations as they're going on. And so this information is all available, again, as part of the Cityworks tools, but this is really what's allowing those organizations to start to dive in and understand where the critical areas are for their work allocations, what areas need more resources and funding, and how to use that information to start to develop their budgets for preventative maintenance for the upcoming year, as well as capital improvement projects. And so this is really that goal that we want to be able to help our organizations reach to start making those decisions. But how do you get there, and how can you start that process? And so what I'm looking at here is Esri's GeoHub. And this is a means of both capturing information from the residents as well as providing back information in a means that's transparent and dynamic to your residents and citizens. And so one of the things I want to start off with here is the ability to go ahead and embed Citizen Reporter within the GeoHub. And Citizen Reporter is a tool from Esri. It's a great way to start to go ahead and enter into the process of collecting that information for citizen engagement, providing a means for constituents to report back to their organization the location of issues that they're seeing while they're out in a neighborhood or something that's specific to their residents. And so I'm just going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit here and start to interact with the information. And so from here, I can go ahead and have specific types of issues that I might have displayed within Citizen Reporter that can then be pushed back into Cityworks for service requests. And I can see here the existing reports that have been coming in for different parts of the organization and different types. I can also go ahead and create a new request. So from here, I'm just going to go ahead and say we're dealing with a damaged hydrant out in the field. I can put in some of my information, and from my device, it recognizes who I am. I can include some attachments. And I can include a photo if that was available to me. I can also go ahead now and just select a point off the map for where this took place. Just going to go ahead and drop this point here, come down, and report it. And now you can see that my request has been submitted. And so at this point, it's going ahead and taking that information and sharing it with Cityworks, so that service request can then be dispatched to a field user, which is actually going to happen automatically based off the routing configuration within Cityworks, and they can pick it up from there and process it in the field. But I wanted to turn back to GeoHub quickly and mention one other means of accomplishing this as well, and that's through Waze. Many of you are familiar with Waze. Some of you may have even used it today just to find locations of traffic on your way to your office. So Waze also has a program called the Connected Citizens Program. It's a free program for municipalities. They can sign up, and it allows them to have that information captured from Waze, shared to their organization. And then with Esri and Cityworks, we've taken this one step further. And that information can also be processed and brought into Cityworks directly from Waze. And there's definitely safeguards in place that can make sure that the quality of data coming in is qualified before anything is taking place on Cityworks, on the side of Cityworks. But it also just gives that other means of capturing that information in terms of damaged streetlights, missing signs, low-hanging trees, potholes, all those types of information that's just captured as part of the Waze process from drivers as they're out and about can then be brought into your organization and then processed through Cityworks. So at this point, we're going to actually hand it off and go back now into the process of how that information, once that report has come in to Cityworks, how that can now be taken in and processed from the field. So I'm going to go ahead here and change my screen and move over to the Cityworks native apps. And so from here within Cityworks, I'm just going to go ahead and do a quick sync for this field user. And so this is using the Cityworks iOS native app using Esri's runtime. From here, I have the ability to come in, do my sync. It recognizes that a new service request has been assigned to me. I can go ahead and pick that up. There's that damaged fire hydrant. You can see the information that came in, those comments that I provided. And from here, I can go back out to my map. I'm going to zoom in a little bit further. I get to the point where my infrastructure starts to show up with my display. And from here, I can actually go ahead and create a follow-up work order for this activity. I'm going to go ahead and turn my layers. You can see my water hydrants are already selected. And it looks like it's just taking a second for those to display here. And then I can go ahead and actually select on the map. And from here, create a work order. And so I'm going to actually create this work order for a fire hydrant repair. And I just want to show now, if I pop back out to the map, you can see that fire hydrant repair now is already in place. And that symbology is being updated. I can sync back so the main office is aware that I've created that work order. And then once that's complete, I can pop back to that work order and actually start doing some of my resource tracking. And so from there, I'm also going to have the ability to create follow-up activities as well as view those initial activities that were part of creating this work order. So I have that whole history available to me from the field. So as I scroll down here, you can see as well, there's been a hydrant condition inspection that was generated automatically as part of that process, which allows that user to not only go through the repair process, track the equipment, labor, material, but also come back in then and complete an inspection to generate a condition score for that hydrant as well. And that's all going to roll up to what we're going to look at a little bit later as part of the demonstration. So I can do a few things here. I'm going to go ahead and change my status to in progress, come back down from here, and I can go through and complete some tasks. So those can be documented as part of the workflow in terms of representing the operating procedure out in the field and making sure if there's items that are mandatory as part of our regulatory compliance, those are being captured and documented dynamically. I can also go ahead and start to track some of my resources. So one of the things that we do with Cityworks is what we call ELM, and it's the ability to go through and generate a crew where automatically labor, equipment, and material are being captured together and provided back to that user to make it easier for that input process. So from here, I have a crew for my hydrant repair. I can go ahead and say everybody was out in the field and working on this for 8 hours. That information is now displayed. I can also go back now and also track my equipment that was being used. Each device was in place for 8 hours. And then I'm also going to track the material that was used as part of that process. One repair kit. And now I can also go ahead and provide some comments. One of the nice things about going ahead and using the native apps is I can actually just use my microphone. So rather than going through the process of typing it in, oh, and there we go. I'll just go ahead and actually add that comment in. And then if I need to go ahead and as well create an attachment, I can take a picture and include that as well. And so from here, I've captured my workflow process. But now, one of the great parts of leveraging the ArcGIS platform as part of this solution is the ability to also go ahead now and call out Esri's Collector for ArcGIS or Navigator for ArcGIS. Using Navigator, I could use this process to go through and route from my location, where I am right now, to the location of this work order or my next work order in the process. Or I can go ahead and call Collector. And you can notice as it's going through to Collector, it actually went ahead and didn't ask me to log back in and provide my credentials again. That handoff between the Cityworks native app and Collector is seamless. It's recognizing my ArcGIS credentials and passing them through immediately, as well as going ahead and zooming in and centering me in the location of that same work that I was doing in Cityworks. So I could have other organizations within other departments within my organization that are accessing the GIS data in real time as well. And if necessary, I could go ahead and make those updates so their information is up to date. So based off of this repair in the field, I could go ahead and say that we need to go through and edit this hydrant information and maybe change the status. In this case, that information could then be updated in real time. I'm not going to go through and edit our GIS data for the purposes today, but that could be done, and then that information could be provided back to other groups such as the fire department, so they can make sure that as they're hitting hydrants out in the field in an emergency situation, they're aware of which hydrants are currently in service or out of service and what their status might be, and they can make those decisions in terms of which ones to access. So I'm going to go back to Cityworks, back to the native app, and from here I can actually go ahead and complete that work order. And there's a lot of logic built into the way the apps are created just to make sure that that end user experience is easier to use. So as part of that single swipe and completion, it's now auto-populating that information for me in terms of who I am out in the field, that I completed the work, date and timestamp information for that finish date. And now if I go back out to the field and I go back to my map, you can see that that work order has dropped off. There is still the inspection that's in place there to be completed and that service request, which hasn't been closed out yet. But I can complete that work, sync it back, and then those end users back in the main office have the ability to see those updates as well. And so now I'm going to go ahead and switch back. And I'm going to access that information that we've been looking at here in Cityworks. So I'm going to log in using my Esri credentials. And you can see here it's recognizing these are all, some of the various apps that are available from Cityworks as part of that asset management solution. And I'm going to go ahead and access Respond. It brings me into my inbox. And one of the first things it's going to do is go through and load my dashboard for me. And in this case, I'm using an operations dashboard from Esri as well. It's going through and taking that information from Cityworks that's been created and shared out as part of a web map. And it's available now to me in the Ops dashboard, which can then be embedded in the Cityworks inbox. I'm going to go ahead and go over to my activity, and as a supervisor, I have that work order that was available as well. I can pull it open now and see those updates that took place in the field. We can see the date and timestamp information, and there's those comments that I added as well. That related inspection is available to me, and those costs that were captured in the field are also displayed back. So far we've covered here that information that's being reported in terms of where the issues are that are being tracked either through residents that are calling in, or it could be field staff that are going through and generating that initial kickoff of the process of the service request. What work was being done to handle that repair, what information was being tracked in terms of the resources that were being allocated for that repair. We can also go through and track that information in terms of if we completed that inspection, what the condition is for that infrastructure at that location. But then all this is the information that we're starting to roll up and look at in terms of what we are trying to strive towards with insights. And the next step in that process is Cityworks operational insights. I'm going to go ahead and just move over to that part of the application. Operational Insights is a tool from Cityworks that allows you to go through and start the risk strategy assessment for your infrastructure. And so I'm going to just go ahead and start by looking at that dashboard for some analysis that's already been done. I'm going to come in here and look at it for my water mains. And what it's doing right now is it's loading that information that's already been calculated as part of a previous strategy and providing it back to me in a series of dashboards. So from here, I can see the probability of failure for my infrastructure, the consequence of failure, the calculated and associated risk, and I can see those things in comparison with one another, as well as in relation to the maintenance score. And maintenance score is a tool that's specific to Cityworks. It's a metric that we've developed that allows an organization to apply their maintenance strategy, their preventive maintenance strategy to a series of assets. And then as those strategies and work orders are created in real time over the life cycle of those assets, it goes back and does some calculations to correlate, is this in line with the frequency and type of work that we prioritize for our assets? And then the result of that is being able to come back in and identify those assets that might be high risk, but also being under-maintained in the system. And the way that we accomplish this is, again, through the GIS. So I'm going to come back over here and take a quick look at how we go through and set this up in Cityworks. And for this part of the application, all you really need is access to the GIS. We're truly just looking at, in terms of the probability of failure and consequence of failure calculations, identifying those attributes in the GIS and providing a prioritization or a weight to each of those attributes. This goes into that calculation for our business risk score, and then that's what's being provided back to us. We can look at that information through the maps and dashboards in Cityworks, but we can also look at it again in Insights for ArcGIS. So as this information is being compiled and shared back, this can also be merged in with that information that I showed at the beginning from Cityworks Analytics in terms of looking at this is where our business risk is the highest for these assets. This is also where activities are taking place in terms of preventative maintenance, our maintenance scores and strategies, and then looking at in all one compiled view. So for that, I'm going to just go back again and just, now that I've given the basis for where that information is coming from, we'll look at that information in our Cityworks dashboard. And here we have those under-maintained water mains that are also have the highest risk, and that's all been shared back out to Insights for ArcGIS. And that information is updating right now. But from here, I can go through and start to do more querying and analysis and identify which assets I need to go through and start to maybe create more aggressive preventive maintenance plans, inspection programs to make sure that we're capturing the latest conditions of those assets, and also just going through and assessing what work is being done against them on a regular basis. And so that provides for us that full cycle of going through the process of capturing that information that's coming in, completing the work, assessing the condition of those assets, identifying those highest risk assets in the organization based off of the data that was captured through that process, and then sharing it back to our constituents, either through a series of web maps or through the through the GeoHub, and having that information provided back in a very transparent manner that they can access and understand what's taking place in their organization. And for all this, this is all providing those tools through a compilation of Cityworks and the ArcGIS tool set to provide that overall solution to really help those organizations and state and local government make more meaningful decisions in terms of how they're allocating their resources. Thank you, everybody, for joining in today. We really appreciate you taking the time to learn a little bit more about Cityworks and ArcGIS together and part of that full public asset management solution. Thank you.